77 years ago, on the 6th of June, the beaches of Normandy, France, were flooded not by water, but by Allied soldiers.
Over 10,000 dead men, many more injured, but all with a purpose: to liberate France from Nazi rule.
It's not often that a picture like this can capture a whole day in history. And it tells us a lot about D-Day, and it's aptly named Into the Jaws of Death.
Let's rewind the clock. May 1940. It's almost a year into World War II and Hitler is on fire. Nazi Germany is blitzkrieging its way through Belgium and France.
Blitzkrieg is a military technique which uses a large number of force and a surprise attack in order to overwhelm the enemy and take over area. Okay, back to the history lesson.
Soon France falls and Nazi Germany occupied and terrorized the people there.
Fast forward 4 years and many atrocities later. The US and the UK desperately need to take back France, and they decide that the beach landings would be the best way.
Let's look at this picture. It was taken on the beach of Omaha, where American soldiers were going to land to fight the Germans.
This picture says a lot. The soldiers were carrying 36 kilograms of weight on their backs, and the Germans had also fortified the beach as well.
There were a lot of beach obstacles that the Americans needed to get through to fight the Germans.
And remember, all this was while they were facing heavy machine gun fire.
Look at the boat they are in. This is a landing craft that the Americans used to get to the shore. Unfortunately, many men were lost the moment the doors of the craft were opened, prompting them to jump into the ocean, which caused a lot of men to drown because of their 80 plus pounds of equipment.
The man behind the camera, Robert F. Sargent. No, that's not his title, that's his name. He was the chief photographer's mate, and he was in charge of taking photographs in difficult positions.
Take a moment to imagine the risk he would have been in, and still having to take a photograph.
The caption of this photo is "Taxis to Hell and Back, Into the Jaws of Death." How aptly named, because the boats were taxis to hell and they were going right into the jaws of death.
The cloudy sky sets the mood for this photograph. The dark clouds stand there as a symbol of death and somber.
Yet with all of that, there is perfection. There is bravery and courage. Soldiers doing their duty despite all the odds stacked against them. A perfect photo which captures the mood with utmost perfection. This photo has one more element. Look at this young man here. As he looks back, the fear is evident. The fear that almost every single man had on that fateful day.
He looks back with a sort of innocence, and moments later would find himself in the middle of the war.
It was a day that shaped history. The surviving soldiers saw their brothers in arms being killed by enemy fire, and still they went on to defeat their enemy.
This photograph is one of the most widely reproduced photos of D-Day. The original copy of this is stored in the US Coast Guard historian's office.
The photograph tells a story of courage, a story of persistence, a story to show that good wins over evil. But in this case, the cost was high.
People will remember Operation Neptune, as it was codenamed, for a long time to come. The bravery and all the lost lives on that great battlefield.
And maybe, just maybe, many years from now, this photograph will be a gateway to that fateful day and will be able to tell people of the stories that people went through to get rid of a maniac like Adolf Hitler.
How a brave photographer risked his life literally in front of the enemy lines to get one picture that was on the front page to tell the world about D-Day.
And how this picture captured more than an image, but a feeling of how that day was like.
The war was to end a year later, with USA dropping atomic bombs on Japan and Japan surrendering.
And the world lived happily ever after.